What's up, guys? I'm Gabby D, and this is Beyond the Bonesaw. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bonesaw. Today we will be going over the case of Jodi Arias, and if you haven't heard this case, buckle up because it's a pretty wild one. It's also pretty popular, honestly. I heard her name before, but I really didn't know much about the case, so it was fun kind of digging deep, seeing what's going on. But it's pretty freaking brutal. So let's just hot drop right in. You know how we do it when it's just me? There's no business, so let's get to it. Jodi Ann Arias was born July 9th, 1980, in California to William Angelo, aka Bill, and Sandra D. Allen, aka Sandy. Life at home was good, nothing out of the ordinary. Jodi actually grew up having a pretty normal childhood. Everyone said she was a good kid. Jodi herself said her childhood was, quote, idyllic and beautiful, which would make detectives scratch their heads a bit later, but we'll get there. Her family owned a Mexican food restaurant, and as a teen, she worked there waitressing to help and earn some extra cash. Her parents did notice a shift in Jodi when they moved to Eureka, which sounds so awesome, California. They moved due to Jodi's father's health. Basically, her mom thought it would be a good idea to be closer to family, and a little extra help never hurts anyone. It was a pretty remote area, and honestly, Jodi hated it. This area gives me more like laid-back country vibes than like California beach vibes, and Jodi was more of the busy life in the city, the beach, you know. She always had to be moving on the go doing something. So Jodi started smoking the devil's lettuce, aka weed, and her parents got wind of it. One day they go through her room and find out their baby girl is trying to grow a pot plant in her bedroom. Remember, this is back in the day, in the 80s to 90s, weed was basically heroin to the world, and they all could easily go to jail for this. So her parents said, let's scare her straight. They got the sheriff involved just to teach Jodi a lesson, basically that you can't be growing marijuana plants in your bedroom. This plan backfired terribly. Her parents said this incident caused Jodi to never ever open up to them again. She stopped trusting her parents fully and wouldn't tell them anything. Since that day, Jodi would never speak about anything in her life, her relationships, her friends, nothing. She also kept a journal through the years, talking about how lucky she was and how she really loved her life. Just keep that in mind for later, because this journal will come back up. At the young age of 16, Jodi dropped out of Eureka Union High School, and she had actually left her parents' house altogether and moved out. She ended up moving in with her then-boyfriend, Bobby. Jodi thought her and Bobby were in love, he treated her nicely, they were young, and started to build this life together. And you know how it is when you're young, especially 16, thinking you found the one. Now, at this age, something happened in Jodi's personality that really worried her friends. She just had this shift. She'd lash out at her friends constantly over tiny little things, and it got so bad, they actually told her mom, like, something's up with Jodi, you need to get her help, she needs to see someone. Everyone assumes something happened, but there really is nothing out there explaining this sudden shift in behavior. There's not like a huge milestone, or maybe Jodi just didn't tell anyone. Now, shortly after that, something happened that would flip her world. She found out lovey-dovey, sweet baby boy Bobby was cheating on her, which came to no shock to her friends. They all thought Bobby was a bum Bobby. He didn't work, Jodi paid for everything, Bobby just pretty much lived there and did what he wanted. Now, when they split up, Jodi moved to another town called Big Sur and started working at a local spa. Eventually, she met Daryl, and Daryl was a good boy. He was a single dad, just working, raising his son, and when they met, Jodi stepped into his life perfectly. She took on that mom role, she was very nurturing, and everything seemed fine until one day Daryl said he didn't want any more kids. They were on different pages when it came to children, and that can be a huge deal breaker for some people, and it was for Jodi. She wanted kids of her own, I get it. Now, Jodi wanted more than just kids in a family. She also wanted more money, more power, to be higher up in society, just to live a better life than most, and she knew she couldn't do that at the spa she was currently at. So around this time is when she learned about prepaid legal, aka PPL, so that's what we'll be referring to this company as, because this is pretty much a catalyst for a lot of things. Not blaming them for anything, but it brings her into other people's worlds, and it just ends badly. So PPL, it's a multi-level marketing agency that I believe goes by a different name now, but PPL is important. This is where she would meet Travis Alexander. One day she was on a work trip in Las Vegas, Nevada. People would throw these PPL conventions all the time, and the employees would give speeches. Basically, they're trying to bring more people in to work for them, and that's how you get paid. These gatherings, I mean, they look kind of tough in a good way. Not even gonna lie. They're huge. It's a good amount of people. Dark jokes on stage, just my type of thing, some alcohol, just a nice little party thing, Everyone's trying to get to know each other. Sure, a lot of the workers are trying to suck you into their job for compensation, but that's besides the point. Now, Travis Alexander, he was very good at his job. And let's talk about Travis a little. He was born July 28th, 1977 in Riverside, California to parents Pamela and Gary Alexander, who sadly were super abusive towards him. And they were abusive basically in every way you can be to a child. His mom beat him. He and his siblings were just left alone in a house with no food, electric, very neglected. Travis was a very small child even for his age. Many think it was due to the malnourishment and neglect. Also, his parents, I can't remember the exact amount of children they had because I'm a dummy and didn't write it down. So there's a lot of kids being neglected here. And when he turned 10, Travis and his siblings actually ended up moving in with his grandmother. I did read a couple articles saying this was due to his father passing away, but their lives turned around for the better. Travis's grandmother was amazing. Travis started doing better in school. His grandmother was religious and introduced them to Mormonism, which Travis loved. He was doing great at home, had clean clothes, fresh sheets, food in his belly, shoes on his feet. He was doing good. As Travis grew, he'd be known amongst his friends as this ambitious, strong social person. He was very involved in his church community. He had a bunch of connections. He was always focused on self-improvement and his professional success. And I'm sure a lot of his success is due to his upbringing. Travis knew what it felt like to starve and be hungry for a better life, and he did everything right to make sure he'd never have to go through that again. And at such a young age, go Travis, honestly. Not to sideline too much here, but whenever I hear about murders in their childhood, and Travis, that was a great catalyst for him to become a murderer, right? We hear about these awful childhoods. I love when people turn them around and say, this is the life I don't want to live. This is how I don't want to treat my children. I want to do better. And Travis was doing exactly that. And he must have been a jokester too. I found out he actually performed stand-up comedy under this alter ego named Eddie Snell. Prior to joining a church and finding his faith, Travis would actually frequently engage in fights, and he does credit Mormonism to taking him out of that negative, angry environment. And I'm sure, again, a lot of that was due to his upbringing. I'm sure he had a lot of anger in his heart and didn't know how to process his emotions, especially when you don't have parents to guide you. But he pretty much said that this religion saved his life. His friends would credit Mormonism also to why Travis was a great spokesperson. In Mormonism, you have to go on missions, right? Basically recruiting people. And honestly, that's exactly what he did at PPL. He was a salesman, but he was a spokesperson more than anything. So it was right up his alley. He's been doing this his whole life. So Travis and Jodi, they meet in September at a PPL convention in Las Vegas, and sparks were flying. Also, I hate to compliment the woman, but Jodi was beautiful. She was a gorgeous girl. So they spent the entire night together. Apparently they stayed in the lobby just talking until 4 a.m. And Travis was really into Jodi. She impressed him, which a lot of people said this about Jodi. When he spoke to her, she was impressive. She was this sweet, charismatic woman. She seemed like she had it all together, and she could really make you feel like the center of the world. On top of this, like I said, Jodi was beautiful. Jodi was a beautiful woman. Her insides are fucking disgusting, but I digress. And Jodi she was one of those shallow, pretty girls that knows she's a shallow, pretty girl and used it to her advantage. Everyone's most common thing they said about Jodi was that she was charming and she's able to turn it on and off like a switch, and it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of interviews and interrogations of her, because if you don't know how this ends, she does kill someone. There are a lot of interviews, interrogations of her out there. There's some documentaries. There's a ton of podcasts, of course. Just go check a few out and you'll see exactly what I mean. It will not take long for you to see what kind of person she is in those videos. So Jodi was 26. And Travis was 29 when they met. Jodi was checking the place out and deciding if she wanted to join the PPL team, and Travis was doing well in the company already. Some say he actually talked Jodi into joining PPL. She really wanted to make a name for herself, and she could do that there. She could work her way up, get money, live the life she wanted in a city she could fall in love with, she could travel. It was right up Jodi's alley. And she looked at Travis, who already had the life she wanted, and she thought, I could totally do this, and maybe even with Travis. He already had a nice home in Arizona with a big walk-in closet, a luxury car. He was doing well for himself, and he earned everything he had. And when I see Travis, just another one of my little tangents, when I see pictures of Travis, he's in a suit, he's got a watch on, he's done up nice. So I completely see why she would look at him and be like, wow, he's got it together. That's exactly what I want. Now, like I said, Travis was actually one of the motivational speakers at the events, and what he did for the company, along with being one of their salesmen, was top tier. And like I said, they always said this was because of his religious background, and it did play a huge part in Travis's life. Another thing about him, because he was Mormon, he'd only really dated Mormon women. He wanted to marry someone who had the same beliefs in him, so he stayed within that realm. Now, with Mormonism, premarital sex is a big no-no in their religion, just like Christianity. This does come into play later, but for now, I think it was enough to convert Jodi, who was raised Christian, but she really wanted to catch Travis's eye, and she knew he would want his future wife to be Mormon, so she converted to Mormonism. And one thing about Jodi, she'll try to fit whatever mold you want, if she wants you. So Jodi, she eventually converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she told Travis she actually wanted him to be the one to baptize her. And of course he's ecstatic that Jodi came to this decision, and then Jodi asked if he would be the one to do it. Of course he said yes. He excitedly agreed, and on November 26th, 2006, Jodi was baptized. About 3 months later, in February of 2007, the two would become official. Jodi did still live in California and Travis in Arizona, but they made it work. They had to travel for work all the time, they had friends, they figured it out. Now, just to give you an idea of Travis's side of things, after the first day they met, Travis started saying to everyone, "I found my wife, I found who I want to marry," and Jodi felt the same way. They were lovey-dovey, things were great. Until they weren't. It turned toxic, and it happened fast. They talked daily to the point it wasn't healthy. They were never apart most of the time, and if they were connecting in another way. Court records say the two actually sent 82,000 emails to each other. And remind you, I don't even know if I stated this, their relationship was only a year and a half. In a year and a half, they sent 82,000 emails to each other. And that's not all. Jodi, she was incredibly jealous. It was so bad, she wouldn't even let Travis sit alone if they were together. Like, she couldn't sit in a chair next to him. She had to be up his ass. She said she had to always be on his side or in his lap so everyone knew he was taken and that he belonged to her. It was so bad, if he was on a stool, she'd sit in his lap. Like, psychotic behavior. Travis actually had these two friends, and they eventually became friends with Jodi. They were a couple, husband and wife, they were married. Again, they only knew Jodi because of him, but Travis had been friends with them for a while. They were like a halfway mark between Jodi and Travis's homes, so they gave them each a room in their home, which, how fucking nice. I don't think I know anyone that would do that for me. And they let them stay there so it was easier to see one another, which is very nice of them. They had separate rooms because Mormonism, no touchy-touchy, but the two were definitely being touchy-touchy any chance they got. Their relationship seemed mainly focused around sex, honestly. And as time passed, the couple who lived there permanently was like, Jodi's a bit off. We need to warn Travis, Jodi's psychotic, right? And in fact, at this point, all Travis's friends pretty much all had a negative opinion of her towards the end. They'd say the relationship was unusually tumultuous and that Jodi's behavior was very worrying. They had even grown concerned for his safety as things grew more toxic and volatile between the two. So the married couple that lived in this house, they pulled Travis upstairs one day into their room to have a heart-to-heart and honestly escaped Jodi, who was downstairs. They said, "Hey man, she's no good for you, she's gotta go." One of them even said, quote, "Travis, I'm afraid we're gonna find you chopped up in a freezer." They said she was completely obsessed with him from the beginning, so the three of them, they're all sitting on the bed having this talk, right? And the wife, she hears something outside their bedroom door and she mouths to them, like, she's out there, she's fucking eavesdropping on us. So Travis, he doesn't believe it. He stands up, slowly creeps over to the door, blings it open, and there she is. Jodi just being a creepy, probably, I picture her like in a dark, unlit hallway, like Insidious or something, with nothing but a shadow body and red eyes peering at you. And Travis is just like, "What's up, Jodi? Like, what are you doing?" And Jodi says, "Oh, I just came up here making sure everything was okay. It's been a while." Which, ick, big ick. So Travis says yes, and basically tells her to go away. He'll meet her in a few minutes downstairs. So Travis, he says, "Yeah, we're fine. Like, go away, go downstairs. I'll meet you in a few minutes." And according to the couple, this wasn't the only time she did this. They caught her at least twice eavesdropping on their conversations with Travis. And keep in mind, that's only the times they caught her, so imagine how many times she did it and got away with it. Another thing about Jodi I saw and have to share with you guys, it was only in 2 articles. So that's not, I'm a little weird. I like to at least verify things through 3 different sources, but this was something I just had to share with you. So in 2 articles it says, in the beginning she was still dating Daryl, that guy with the son who didn't want kids, remember? And they actually dated for about 4 years. And one of Travis's coworkers said she was in an entire other relationship with some guy, but that you would never know it because how she acted with Travis. Basically, she wanted marriage and kids. Her man already did all that. He didn't want more kids, so she began to look elsewhere, and that was to Travis. Now, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Just kidding. But let's talk about Jodi and Travis doing it. Because they were doing it. And it was dirty, and a lot. Like, a lot of dirty, a lot of sex, a lot of stuff going on. Their freak flag was flying, and I'm all in support of it. But sometimes Travis wasn't. The two were having premarital sex, and Travis really did go back and forth a lot about this. He really fought about it. I think he had a lot of guilt because of his religion. So one minute he's dirty talking her on the phone, and the next he's wondering if their relationship wasn't pure enough to evolve into a marriage one day. And it is sad he battled with it. You can do the deed and still be a good person. It does not make you bad. We're all sinners anyway, right? Or is that just a Christian thing? Let's move on. Eventually, this did eat up Travis, and I think the fact their relationship was so intense and spicy just added fuel to his thoughts. Because it was spicy. It was far from vanilla, if you know what I mean. So Travis, he eventually broke up with Jodi, and she seemed fine with it. It seemed like it didn't end on bad terms, which is always good. It was so good that after Travis broke up with her, she decided, I'm going to move closer to him. Which, huge red flags. I'm waving my arm with like 10 of them. She moved from California to his hometown in Arizona, which is, again, red flag. That is stalker behavior. You don't want to live near him the entire time you're dating, but then as soon as you break up and he leaves you, you want to be right near him? It's fucking weird. It's fucking weird. Now, this breakup, it didn't stop Jodi. Not at all. She had the code to his garage, which, keep in mind, she moved there after they broke up, and I really think it was to, like, infiltrate back into his life. So she came to his house unannounced late at night, entered his home, crawled into bed with him, and Travis, well, he was having crazy sex with a beautiful woman that he already was having sex with before, so he didn't seem to mind. But guys, always mind, because what the fuck? And I see in so many cases, people don't change their codes or locks, and it never ends well. Change your codes. Not victim blaming, I'm not doing that. But I'm going to take any opportunity I can to tell you guys the steps you should take to make yourself learn from these situations, you know? Change your codes at least. It takes 5 seconds. So crazy Jodi, she's sneaking in and out of the house, waking him up at night to have some fun. And if you think, oh, that's cute, that's sexy, you know? Okay, you're into that, I get it. But then we find out later she was also sneaking in his doggy door and would sleep on his couch, and he never knew it. Like, that's fucking weird. She'd crawl in through the doggy door, which also, why are you doing that if you have his garage code? But I digress. And would sleep on his couch, and he never found out. Needless to say, these random breaking-ins, hooking-ups, things had not been going as Travis planned, and they were not panning out well. Now, this gave Jodi hope that things were on the up and up, but then Travis did meet a nice Mormon girl at church, and obviously this pissed Jodi off. And I really think that Jodi stayed there so this wouldn't happen. I think she thought she could suck him back in with her vagina, and she tried, and it didn't work. And again, his new girl pissed Jodi off. She started calling this girl anonymously, and even went as far as showing up at her house, knocking on all her doors and windows to frighten her. And at some point, Travis figured whoever was terrorizing his new girl was also the one who kept slashing his tires repeatedly. Guys, if we can assume who it was, you know Travis and his friends were too. It's Crazy Pants Jodi. When Travis was like, yo, are you the one doing this? Jodi said, what, me? No, never. And then in April of 2008, she actually moved back to California as if she was proving some type of point. Like, I'll get away and, it wasn't me. A friend of Travis would say when Jodi left that Travis said, I'm getting my life back. It's a whole new start. She's gone. And I can't imagine the weight just off his shoulders. His stalking, psycho, tire slashing, girlfriend haunting ex moved further away from him. Before we jump back into the action, I have to shout out the first ever sponsor of our show, Dubby. If you follow me on social media, you already know I'm usually deep grinding Apex or running missions in Warframe. And when you're locking in for hours, the last thing you want is that mid-game crash. That's why I've been loving Dubby. They're known for their jitterless energy blends, which means no crash, no weird shaky feeling, and no guilt. Just clean focus that helps you lock in and carry your squad for hours. And if you're an anime fan like me, you have to check out the Crunchyroll collab. The anime-themed shakers are insane. I've got the Chainsaw Man energy blend and the Free Run shaker on the way, and I cannot wait to show you guys. If you want to level up your setup and support the show at the same time, head to dubby.gg, that's dubby.gg, and use code BONESAW at checkout, BONESAW, for 10% off your entire order. All the info is in the show notes. Huge thanks to Dubby for believing in the pod, and a huge shout out to you guys for listening. Now, let's get back to it. But sadly, the two would still communicate, and we're all adults here, let's be honest. How many toxic relationships have you been in? And I bet for most of us, it's been more than one, huh? And sadly, this was one of Travis's. On May 26, 2008, judging by the emails, they had this huge fight. They were arguing nonstop. Somehow Travis knew or heard Joey had been flirting with some guy, and he seemed really pissed off, honestly. He was saying some pretty mean things, and she was shooting it right back at him. Again, toxic relationship. Around this time, there was another convention coming up in Salt Lake City, and Jodi was actually seeing another guy named Ryan Burns who lived out there. So she was going to go to the convention and stay with him while she was out there. Now let's fast forward a little bit to June 4th, the week of the convention. Travis, he actually missed a huge conference call that evening, which was very unlike him, but no alarm bells are going off, right? It was just one call. Literally anything could happen. He could have been late, slept in, who knows. As that happened, Jodi actually met her new fling, Ryan Burns, in the Salt Lake City suburb of West Jordan and attended a few business meetings for the conference. Ryan would later state he noticed she randomly dyed her bleach blonde hair this deep, dark shade of brown because she did have, bleach blonde hair. But the change of color isn't anything out of the ordinary for anyone, really, especially us women. What really got Burns was the cuts all over Jodi's hands. She had a ton of them. 2 days later, on June 6th, Jodi actually would leave Salt Lake City and drove west towards California. She called Travis several times and left several voicemail messages for him. It's also reported she accessed his voicemail system at this point. I don't really know why, but I'm just telling you what I know. And the day after, Jodi would return her rental because she rented a car to do all this driving with. June 9th, Travis's friends, they really began to worry about him since no one has seen him for a while now. It's been about 5 days, so Travis was actually supposed to be going to Cancun with this woman named Mimi from church. It isn't confirmed, but I'm pretty sure Mimi is who Jodi was jealous about. This is the girl he met from the Mormon church. And the two, they dated a few times. Mimi told him she wasn't really feeling it. She didn't see Travis as anything more than a friend. She friend-zoned him. And Travis, he did like her as a person, and he told her she should still come to Cancun with him. Why not, right? Tickets are bought, bags are almost packed, we're friends at the least. Let's go enjoy the trip. Now, leading up to the trip, he went ghost. No call, no email, nothing. Just all contact with Travis stopped. And the night they were supposed to leave, Mimi still didn't hear from him. She reached out, but nothing. Just reminding you, this is 5 days after Travis was last seen or heard from. And Mimi, she was super worried about him. So she decides to go over there along with a few of Travis's friends to check on him. They couldn't figure out how to get in the house. There were some lights on, so they assumed someone was home, but no one's answering the door. They did look outside for a key, they didn't see one, and then one of the guys was like, "Oh, I remember the garage code." So they entered the house via the garage again. Reminder, change your damn code. In this case, hey, at least your friend had it to get in. Friends, family, fine. Exes, no. Crazy people, no. Just change your code. So his friends and Mimi, they get in the garage. They see Travis's car is still there, which is always a bad sign, and they decide to continue heading inside. A few lights were on and they went into his office, and right away they noticed his phone and keys were sitting there on the desk, which is an even worse sign. Then they realized one of his roommates were actually home. He was in his room watching a really loud movie, so he didn't hear them knocking or anything. He just walked out and saw them all there, and he claims he thought Travis was in Cancun like everyone else. His friends explained he wasn't there, and basically what happened to Mimi, and then the car, and his phone, and wallet, and everything, so now the roommate's worried as well. So worried he was like, "Hey, I actually have the spare key to Travis's room because his door was locked, and he gave it to me just in case of emergencies, so I'm gonna go grab the key, unlock the door, and we'll go in there." Huge warning. I don't even like doing disclaimers, honestly, because you're listening to a true crime podcast. What do you expect? But just warning, this scene is gnarly, really bad. I looked up the photos of it because, you know me, I'm looking up everything, autopsy, crime scene photos, anything I could find, and literally there are 2 of them that I have had nightmares about. That's how bad it is. I don't think I've ever had nightmares about cases before, but these photos, I can't unsee them. So I'm just warning you guys. And if you are squeamish, don't look up these photos. So the group, they unlock the door, they enter the bedroom, and they see right away large pools of blood in the hallway leading all the way to his master bathroom. They open the door, and blood's everywhere, all over. And the master bathroom had one of those shower stalls, so you can only stand in it. You know what I mean? There's no tub. You can literally just stand. And in there they'd find Travis's naked, bloodied body, curled up at the bottom of his small square shower, stabbed and shot to death. When they called 911, the dispatcher asked if he was suicidal or if anyone had a vendetta against Travis. And the friend who spoke with him mentioned his ex-girlfriend Jodi and how she had been stalking him. So the police, they're looking for Jodi after speaking with friends. It was clearly an angry, frenzied attack and matched everything they knew about her at this point. So some detectives, they're out looking for her already while everyone else is searching the house, and they would find a camera in Travis's washing machine, which is odd. So obviously they wanted to look at it. It was one of those nice big, professional cameras, those big black ones, And it seemed like whoever put it in there did that and started the washer trying to destroy the camera. At this point, the camera isn't working, but there's an SD card in it. And on that SD card would be some very, very disturbing photos that we will get to later. And these are some of the photos that I am talking about. There was a bloody handprint found on the hallway that led to the bathroom. They also found some dark-colored hair on scene. I couldn't figure out if it belonged to Jodi or Travis. I didn't see pictures of the length of it because Travis does have short hair and Jodi has long hair. Remember, Jodi just dyed her hair dark brown. The medical examiner would later testify that Travis's jugular vein, artery, and trachea were slashed open with a knife. And I don't mean to be graphic, but in order to understand how terrible it was, we have to cover these facts. And the fact was, she cut Travis bad and deep. He was literally cut from ear to ear, almost decapitated, and it was just very, very bad. On top of that, he had 27 stab marks. Most were to the back of him, including his back, shoulders, even a few to his head. He had defensive wounds all over his hands and arms. You can tell he just was trying to protect himself. Travis also had a single gunshot wound right above his right eyebrow, and the medical examiner stated that Travis was most likely dead already when the gunshot was inflicted. No gun was found on scene, and the gun that shot Travis would actually never be found. Her parents found it odd that she was saying she really needed to leave. She had to go. Something was going to happen, and she needed to leave town now. But luckily, detectives got to her first, and she was arrested at her home 6 days later. On July 9th, 2008, Jodi was indicted by a grand jury in Maricopa County, Arizona for first-degree murder of Travis Alexander. Now we are going to talk about her interrogation tapes, and on one of the interrogation tapes, she was alone and, they just watch her, right? They're always watching you. If you are in an interrogation room ever, always assume there's a camera in there and someone's probably on the other side of it watching you. Now, Jodi, she was acting a bit odd. She started singing "Oh Holy Night" and doing handstands in the interrogation room. She started talking to herself, saying, "I bet you're sorry now, brat." And in the end, before her mug shot, again, shallow, she'd say, "I know it's shallow," so she even said it herself, but that she'd like to freshen up before her mugshot. That's right. She asked police, she stated, "I know it's shallow, but I would like to freshen up before my mugshot is taken." And she asked this to a detective who was arresting her for brutally murdering a man. Obviously, the detective said no, and right before her photo was taken, she asked if her hair looked okay, fixed it, and smiled wide for her mugshot. During prison interviews, you can see Jodi, she's always fixing her makeup a lot. She's often holding some kind of beauty product or a beauty blender, doing her makeup. She has no shame. September 5th, she was extradited to Arizona. September 11th, she pleaded not guilty. During her interrogations, she gave several different stories about where she was the day Travis was murdered. The first story was she wasn't even in Mesa the day that he was killed, and that she hadn't seen him since March, which was 4 months before he was killed. Then they presented her with those photos from the SD card. At first, they showed her naked photos of her and Travis. This was a thing they did. And the fact that they had her hair and palm print in blood at the scene. Again, I'm not sure if this is the hair that was found in the sink, or they found it somewhere else, or if the hair they found was blonde or dark colored, who knows. But they said, "Hey, we found your hair, we found your palm print and blood at the scene," and she finally admitted to them that she had seen Travis. But this was before 2 home intruders broke in and killed him. Also, when she was shown the pictures, she was like, "Wow, they really do look like me," which, yeah, because they fucking are you, Jodi. There's a point they're arguing about the prints too, there is no way anyone else could have your left palm print in blood on that wall. And she replies, "There's no reason I would ever want to hurt him." And later adds, "If I was going to ever try to kill somebody, I would use gloves. I've got plenty of them." And honestly, Jodi, if that's the case, you're just making yourself seem more like an idiot. Now, the story is, she had been with Travis, The two were having sex and taking photos and decided they wanted to move in the bathroom because they wanted some, quote, water vibe photos. And that's when two intruders had broken into his home, murdered him, and attacked her. The two intruders were telling her she shouldn't even be there, she wasn't supposed to be there. They shot Travis in the head, took her registration, and said they know where she lives now. And gave her the whole, we'll kill your family speech, we'll kill you. Of course, the female attacker really wanted to kill Jodi, and the man defended Jodi, and was the only reason she was set free. Probably because she was just so pretty. Also, she never in the story mentions the stab wounds, just the gunshot. And this isn't her last story, she'll have one more, and again, she never mentions these stab wounds. So the officer listening to her was like, girl, I have worked on this force for a long, long time, years upon years, and that is the most ridiculous story I have ever heard, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So then her third and final story would come 2 years after her arrest, when she retracted her story of the two intruders and instead claimed she had killed Travis in self-defense. Now she's claiming she had been a victim of domestic violence, which is total bullshit. She told the same story of them having sex, taking pictures, making their way to the bathroom so they could use the water for the vibes. And then she dropped the camera while they were taking the pictures, and Travis just lost his shit. He was upset that, she dropped the camera, and he was like, you're a dumbass, and just started flipping out on her. And then she said that he body slammed her to the floor, and that this wasn't the first time this happened. So she ran to his closet, which was right off the bathroom, grabbed his gun, and she shot him. And according to Jodi, that's all she remembers. He was stabbed 27 times at least, and his throat had been slit ear to ear, nearly decapitating him, but she never talks about that part. And I wonder why. Killer's amnesia? And also, I just want to state, if you're able to run out of the bathroom, grab a gun, go back in and kill him, shoot him, right? Why wouldn't you just run out of the house? Honest to God. If you're that scared for your life, why wouldn't you just leave the house? And again, he was stabbed 27 times before he was shot, because they think, he died before he was shot. So none of it makes sense. It doesn't make sense. None of it. I don't for a second believe any of the words out of Jodi's mouth, and I'm not alone. So trial would begin, and the judge's name is Sherry K. Stevens. On January 2nd, 2013, opening arguments began. The prosecution would say Jodi was a jealous person who attacked Travis after he attempted to end their relationship. Jodi's defense would say that Travis had been violent and abusive, and that Jodi only killed him after he, quote, lunged at her in anger. The prosecution alleged that Jodi had premeditated the murder. When she was at her grandparents', their gun actually went missing, and they alerted authorities. So they believe she staged a robbery at her grandparents' residence where she was staying in order to take a handgun and kill Travis with it. A police detective who investigated the robbery ended up testifying that the gun was the same caliber used to kill Travis. And remember, the gun, it was never found. The one that killed Travis was never located. But they knew they were the same caliber at least, and that's all they had to go off of. On top of that, her brother would testify that she borrowed 2 gas cans from him before her trip. So he's like, yeah, she borrowed 2 gas cans from me for her trip. She had the rental, she purchased gas in advance in order to hide her movement. She didn't want a paper trail showing that she stopped for gas along the way there. So again, a lot of premeditation. The prosecution called Ryan Burns, Jodi's new, hopefully now old fling, who testified Jodi was acting normal when she visited him the day after Travis was murdered. He did state that her hair color was changed, which we never find out why she dyed her hair, so I'm wondering if it's one of two things. One, I've never had large amounts of blood in my bleach blonde hair, but I'm really wondering if that stains it. Red's one of the hardest colors to get out. My hair used to be fire truck red, so I remember talking to a hairstylist about it. I know it's one of the hardest colors to get out. I don't know if that applies to blood, or she had a huge life event and decided to change her hair. So Ryan Burns would claim she showed up with dark-colored hair. He didn't think anything about it. She just dyed her hair. And he did ask her about the cuts on her hands, because she was all sliced up on both sides. And she claimed she was working at a restaurant called Margaritaville, and she got all those cuts from broken glass. Now, later, this restaurant, a detective would testify, never existed. It was complete bullshit. And honestly, the cuts on her hands, usually killings involving knives, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of slippage. Usually the person stabbing is also cutting themselves in some way, just from the slippage of it. It just happens, especially if you're in a frenzy state like her, stabbing someone 27 times. I'm sure that knife slipped a bit. Now, on February 4th, 2013, Jodi would take the stand in her own defense, testifying for 18 days. She testified for 18 days, which it either was or still is the longest anyone has ever testified on their own behalf. She detailed the abuse she suffered at the hands of her parents and eventually Travis. And remember, Jodi had a journal, and Jodi's journal, plus Jodi herself, claims she had a, quote, beautiful and ideal life, right? I said that in the beginning. But then she would say her parents beat her relentlessly. She claimed the older she got, the worse they were, and that when she was 7, her dad started using a belt as punishment. Then she'd say her mom walked around with a wooden spoon in her purse wherever they went, just to remind her she could take it out and beat her at any point, no matter where they were. But at the same time, she will go back and forth. She talks about her childhood being perfect and never having any issues. Again, she goes back and forth on this a lot. And it's constant, even to this day. She'll say it's perfect, but then she'll say she was abused, this and that. And at this point, her mom, she was actually in the interrogation when it came up one day in the room. And she said, quote, "You've got this fantasy in your head that you've gotten a rotten childhood and you really need help." So her mom was like, "That didn't happen. You need to see a psychologist." Now, Jodi, she would describe her sex life with Travis as violent. They even played a recording between Jodi and Travis in front of everyone. And like I said, they were not vanilla. Travis was living his best life. And Travis described wanting to tie Jodi to a tree and sodomize her. Now, they did this to try to prove that Travis was this violent, sadistic man. But this recording also proved Jodi was a very active, willing participant, because she'd reply, "That's so debasing, I like it." And that's all they had. Honestly, nothing came from this. I don't even know why she played this recording. It's ridiculous. Of course, this is all while she's testifying on her own behalf, and she'd say how the relationship became increasingly physically and emotionally abusive. One argument she had with him, she said she held out her hand to block Travis from kicking her, and that he ended up breaking her finger. As she explained the story, she held up her left hand in the courtroom, showing that her ring finger was a little crooked since she never got it taken care of. She also tried to claim that Travis was a pedophile. She said she walked in on him watching CP and masturbating. I feel like if that was the case, they would have been like, "Oh, there was CP on his phone, on his computer." You know what I mean? There's things to back that up, especially if she's saying she saw him watching it on his phone, on his laptop. To this day, she still claims self-defense, saying he attacked her when she dropped his camera, forcing her to fight for her life. But most of his wounds were also to his back. He was naked, showering, with no weapon. And the photos in that camera tell a very real-life horror story. Now we're going to go over the photos. They're all marked June 4th, 2008, the day he died. Now some are of Jodi and Travis in sexual poses. They're adults, they can do what they want. And then there's one of him literally looking at the camera and he's like, "What the fuck?" And this is one of the other ones that's burnt into my brain because he looks terrified. He looks scared. I feel like he knows something's coming. And this is the last photo of him alive. He is in the shower. There's water dripping down him. And then there's one a few minutes later of him bleeding on the bathroom floor, blood dripping from his shoulder. And in this photo, there is a foot showing with pants. And they're like, "Jodi, this is you. Those are your pants." And I have to point out how she is legit taking photos of him before and after killing this man. And all of this was found on the SD card in the washer. Now, another thing about Jodi, she was throwing that thing around, if you know what I'm saying. And at one point, there were rumors Jodi was messing with one of Travis's friends. I also found an email to Jodi from Travis's friend. And by friend, this is actually the married couple that was letting Jodi and Travis have spare bedrooms in their house for when they wanted to see each other. And this email said he believed Jodi would be Travis's next victim and that she was just another girl Travis was playing, which, fuck you, friend. I left your name out of here, but I know who you are. Jodi allegedly responded by saying, "I'm a bit of a sociopath." Now, his friends testified during the trial about this, saying that he knew Travis was seeing multiple women, he was just trying to warn Jodi, and that he and his wife had actually been manipulated by Jodi, and that they had a falling out with Jodi months after the emails, when they caught her eavesdropping on their conversations with Travis. So I'm thinking Jodi's turning everyone against themselves. She wants to know what Travis is doing. She wants to know what other women Travis is seeing, and her best way to do that was to become best friends with Travis's friends to get that information. And only God knows what she said or how she manipulated them to obtain it. Now, the prosecution, they did call witnesses, which actually included several of Travis's other ex-girlfriends, who stated that they had never seen him exhibit problems with anger or violence in any way, pretty much backing up that he was a good man. In closing arguments, Jodi was accused of being a manipulative liar. They showed a text that Travis had sent saying, "I want you to understand how evil I think you are." Now, this is what these are the events that they think happened. After driving all night, Jodi arrived unannounced at Travis's home early in the morning on June 4th, 2008. The two slept until the early afternoon the next day, and then took a series of nude photos of each other. Evidence recorded from the digital camera indicates the murder occurred at around 5:30 p.m. that day. The state alleged Jodi took photos of Travis while he was in the shower and then began stabbing him repeatedly. again displayed the gruesome crime scene photos, and they even commented on how Jodi attempted to manipulate the jury, and lastly calling Travis's killing a slaughter. Because honestly, it was just that. She slaughtered that man. She made efforts to stage the crime scene by deleting photographs, moving his body, and attempting to clean up the bathroom, and then drove back to Salt Lake City where she visited her love interest, Ryan Burns. She sent Travis a text message, a voicemail, an email expressing regret that she was unable to come by and visit him, so she was just trying to cover her ass. Before we get back into the case, I want to take a moment to shout out the first ever sponsor of the show, Dubby. If you listen to us, you probably know most of my research happens late at night. We're talking deep dives at midnight, open tabs everywhere, timelines, court documents, police reports, the kind of rabbit hole where suddenly I blink and it's 3 a.m. That's where Dubby comes in. Their jitterless energy blends mean no crash, no shaky hands, and no foggy brain. Just clean focus that actually lasts. It helps me stay locked in while researching cases or recording long sessions without burning out halfway through. And honestly, I love that I don't feel gross afterwards. No guilt, no wired feeling, just steady energy when I need it most. If you want to support the show and stay sharp during your own late night deep dives, head over to dubby.gg. That's dubby.gg and use code BONESAW at checkout. That's BONESAW for 10% off your entire order. Huge thanks to Dubby for supporting the pod, and a huge thanks to you guys for listening. Now, let's get back to it. She later claimed that she learned of his murder on June 9th, 2008 from a mutual friend. She sent flowers to Travis's family at a memorial service held for him. 'Cause she's disgusting. The fact that she also lied about her involvement at least 3 separate occasions didn't help her case. Now, they're also fighting, is this premeditated or not, because that'll play a big part on which charge she gets and, if she faces the death penalty or not. Her defense made sure to ask the jury to put aside any personal dislikes they may have for Jodi, and said that the prosecution's premeditation theory didn't make any sense. Which, in my opinion, it's just ridiculous, but the defense has a job to do as well. They pull shit out of their ass if they have to. And fun fact, I did read 3 jurors were actually dismissed through the course of this trial. One was for misconduct, one was for health-related reasons, and the third one actually got arrested for having a DUI. May 8th, 2013, which would have been my 19th birthday, fun fact, after a 64-day jury, Jodi was found guilty of premeditated first-degree murder during the aggravated phase. The state alleged the murder was committed in an especially cruel manner. After deliberating for less than an hour, the jury unanimously agreed that the aggravating factor was proven. Now they needed to have a trial to see if she was eligible for the death penalty. May 23rd came around. It was a hung jury, so they had to declare a mistrial. And March 17th, 2014, a retrial date was set for April 13th, 2015. Now, the prosecution needed to convince the jury that the murder was cruel, heinous, or depraved for them to determine that Jodi was eligible for the death penalty. This phase of the trial started on May 15th, 2013. The only witness was the medical examiner who had performed Travis's autopsy. Of course, Jodi's attorney, who had repeatedly asked to step down from the case at this point, they didn't even want to take care of her anymore, provided only brief opening statements and closing arguments in which they said that the adrenaline rushing through Travis's body may have prevented him from feeling much pain during his death, and I really do hope that was true. After less than 3 hours of consideration, the jury determined that Jodi was eligible for the death penalty. On May 16th, 2013, prosecutors called Travis's family members to offer victim impact statements in an effort to convince the jury that Jodi's crime should receive the death sentence. 5 days later, Jodi would plead for a life sentence. She acknowledged that her plea for life was a reversal of remarks that she made on a television report. She did state that she wanted the death penalty on interviews, and then she would claim, quote, "Each time I said that, I did mean it, but I lacked perspective until very recently. I could not imagine standing before you and asking you to give me life." She said that she changed her mind to avoid bringing more pain to members of her family who were in the courtroom. I did see in a few articles, take it with a grain of salt, it looked like she held up a white t-shirt with the word survivor written across it, telling the jurors that she would sell the clothing and donate all proceeds to victims of domestic abuse. She also said that she would donate her hair to Locks of Love while in prison, and that she had already done so 3 times while she was in jail. And honestly, no one gives a fuck if you cut your hair off or not, Jodi. They just want you to rot in prison, but okay. That evening, in a joint jailhouse interview with the Arizona Republic, KPNX TV, and NBC's Today, Jodi said she did not know whether the jury would decide on life or death. She said, quote, "Whatever they come back with, I will have to deal with it. I have no other choice." Damn right you don't. You lost that privilege. You lost all your choices when you stabbed that man. On May 23rd, the sentencing phase of trial resulted in a hung jury, prompting the judge to declare a mistrial. Regarding the verdict, she said, quote, It felt like a huge sense of unreality. I felt betrayed, actually, by the jury. Side note, fuck you, Jodi. I was hoping they would see things for what they are. I felt really awful for my family and what they were thinking. The jury had reached an 8-4 decision in favor of the death penalty. After the jury was discharged, the jury foreman stated, quote, "By the end of it, we were mentally and emotionally exhausted. We were actually horrified when we found out that they had actually called a mistrial, and we felt like we had failed," end quote. On March 2nd, 2015, after many court proceedings, we're now at a retrial for the death penalty, and the jury informed Judge Stevens that they were deadlocked. Of course, Jodi's attorney wanted a mistrial, but the judge said no, and ordered them to resume deliberations. Now March 5th came around 3 days later, and the judge had to declare a mistrial, because the jurors, who deliberated for about 26 hours at this point, were deadlocked 11-1 in favor of the death penalty. The 11 jurors in favor of her death tried unsuccessfully to get that one juror removed from the jury, arguing that that juror was biased. The one juror said no, and because of that, things got out of hand. Her name, phone number, and address were actually leaked online, and she started to receive death threats. A jury consultant would say, "The very fact that people are making death threats and trying to out her is not a proud day for any single one of those people, and they should be ashamed." So now the death sentence is off the table, and their sentencing hearing was scheduled for April 7th, 2015, with Judge Stevens having the option to sentence Jodi to either life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, or with the possibility of parole after 25 years. April 13th, 2015. Stevens sentenced Jodi Arias to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And just a random fact, about a month before she was actually sentenced, this trial cost an estimated $3 million by then. 3 months later, in June of 2015, following a restitution hearing, Jodi was actually ordered to pay more than $32,000 to Alexandra's siblings. Her attorney stated this was about 1/3 of the amount they requested. And as of 2026, Jodi is housed at the Arizona Department of Corrections. She started her sentence in the complex's maximum security unit, but has since been downgraded to medium-level security. As for Travis and his family, they would sadly have to put their baby boy to rest in Riverside, California. And my heart truly goes out to him and his family. Travis, he seems like he was an amazing person who had a very bright future ahead of him. 29 is too young. 29 is too young. And Jodi is honestly right where she should be, in my opinion. Now, I want to finish out this episode with some words I found describing Travis. He truly just seemed like a beautiful soul. Travis lived every day as if it were his last, with many accomplishments, dreams, travels, and successes. He was an amazing individual who sought out to save the world with his positive influence, his motivational speaking, and his writing. He was well on his way to making all his dreams a reality. Travis has touched so many lives and will continue in our hearts forever and always. We can never express the unbearable pain from this tragedy. We love him so much and cherished every precious moment with him. We will miss his smile, the way he made us laugh, and everything about him. Definitely let me know what you guys think. I know there's a lot of information out there, so if there's anything interesting you've heard, leave it in the comments. I'm always lurking there. You can let me know how you feel on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at BonesawPod. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond the Bonesaw. Send your case suggestions over. I've gotten some really good ones and I really appreciate it, to beyondthebonesaw@gmail.com. And until next week, stay aware, stay safe. I'm Gabby D, and I'll see you guys beyond the Bonesaw.